First off, I'd like to thank everyone for coming out tonight. I know we're all extremely busy with spring season kicking off and school, and I'm sure we've got spring break coming up, and also I'd like to thank the college coaches for coming out and coming out here and talking about the college recruiting process. And I think for us, our goal is to do the best we can to kind of just educate you guys about the process. It's it can be overwhelming. There's a lot of information out there, and it's almost impossible to kind of touch on everything tonight. But I think the goal is to just say, okay, what can I do to, at the very least, get started? I think most of you are on the younger side, which is good to see, to at least be aware of some of the steps that you can take. And also on the other end of it, whether you're a bit older, juniors, going to your senior year, there's still opportunities. And I think for me, it's if you do want to play at the next level, whatever that may look like, Division I, Division II, Division III, junior college, there are opportunities out there for you. It just comes down to you, not only you putting putting the work in on the field, but also more, to me, very important, doing the stuff off the field. And that's what we're really going to touch down on in terms of the topic we're going to cover tonight. So before we go ahead and start, just a little bit about myself. I'm Javier Ayala. I've been in the club now for about 2 years now. I was a former college coach. I've coached at the Division I level at Berkeley, USF, and also coached at the Division II level. So I've got some perspective on, a high-end public school or a private school, and also the state system, played at the Division II level. And I really enjoyed coaching at all three levels. And I feel like is a fit for everyone, and it just comes down to you trying to maximize those opportunities to find that right fit.
Hi, I'm Tracy Ham, Tracy Joyner now, but head coach at UC Davis.
Hi, I'm Rachel Mersick, women's soccer assistant at Cal.
I'm Andrew Cumbo. I'm the head coach for the men and the women's team at Las Positas College, and I'm a tenured professor there too.
Hi, Javier Hernandez, men's soccer with the University of San Francisco. I'm one of the assistant coaches there.
Teresa Rocchiolo, head coach at St. Mary's College.
John DiMartini, San Francisco State University women's head soccer coach.
And Mike Haswell, the head men's soccer coach at Cal State East Bay.
So in terms of goals and aspirations, throughout the 2 years, I'll periodically meet with players, and this is like the first thing I'll ask the player. And many times, we really don't know what that is. Maybe in our minds, we might say, oh, I want to be a professional soccer player, or I want to play college soccer, but do you have a specific goal? And many times you probably don't, but it's something to start thinking about and writing down and saying, okay, I do want to play Division I soccer. Okay, where? Oh, I want to play in the ACC, or I want to play in the Big West. I want to focus on academics. Well, whatever those goals might be, and they can change over time, but you have to have some sort of idea of where you want to start. And then if you do have a specific goal, like how are you going to get there? And those are some of the steps that we'll talk about today. Just in general, we have four-year colleges. There's the public schools, private schools, junior college, and each of the divisions have a wide range. In California, we have a lot of schools. We're very fortunate that we have very good academic UC schools that are primarily at Division I level, state schools that are both Division I, Division II, and then also the junior college level, there's a lot of really good soccer programs, and not only that, but really good pathways for your education, and also we'll talk about costs, which can be very cost efficient in terms of you having the ability to play the college, junior college level, and then Division III is more on the academic side. And there are several schools on the West Coast, but a lot of them are actually in the East Coast. So just in general, these are some numbers. On the women's side, there's over 1,000 schools that have programs. Division I, around 300, Division II, 200, Division III, over 400, junior college, around 400 as well, and then NIA, around 200. So again, in terms of numbers, there are a lot of schools. What tends to happen, especially us living in California, we kind of just focus on like a handful of schools, just because that's what we know. But you do want to play, and you're very adamant about playing, there are plenty of opportunities for you to play at the college level. Men's side, similar, but the numbers are a bit lower, and a lot of that has to do with Title IX, so you still have a fair amount of opportunities to play, but there are some differences in terms of the numbers of being able to play at the college level. So how do you get started? So the number one thing for me comes down to like researching schools, getting started, and like how do I do that? I think many of us look at, if we're in the Bay Area, well, we're going to look at Stanford, we're going to look at Berkeley, and then we kind of just start looking at some of the UCLA and then the East Coast, the Virginias of the world, and really don't really dig deep into what conferences do they play in? What's your competition like? And I think for a lot of you, is just starting that process of just trying to figure out, where can I even begin to just writing things down? And I think that's a key point. We'll talk about making a college list. We'll talk about highlight videos. We'll talk about reaching out, and also where most of you tend to focus your energy on is, the games, showcases, ID camps, which, of course, at the end of the day, you do have to perform. But leading up to this point, a lot of this work needs to be done. So in terms of your college research, you're looking at certain levels. Most of us will probably gravitate towards the top 10. What's the top 25? And you're just looking at stats. Okay, who were the top schools last year? Not only Division I level, looking at the other divisions as well. Then if you really want to start getting in more depth, especially now with the technology and access to video, if you are looking at a school, are they playing direct? Are they playing physical style? Are they playing a more technical style? So then you have to start looking at yourself as a player. Like, what are your skill sets? Like, are you strong athletic? Are you technical? Are you both? Are you going to fit in a certain system? So you can start looking into that. So then when it comes to you, when you get older, narrowing down where you are looking to play at, then maybe you have a higher probability of having opportunities to play at a certain school because of these, say, like tools that you have as a player. Looking to research, so looking at facilities. I think in most cases, we're all very fortunate to have places to go to where the facilities are amazing. I mean, you can go to Berkeley and you've got the football stadium, soccer stadium, it's all amazing, and you can go to Las Positas, and I mean, it's Las Positas campus, and their soccer field can be better than most like average academies in Europe. So I think we're very fortunate to have these weight rooms, to have all these resources at these schools compared to like the rest of the world. So I think, take that also into perspective when you're doing this research and being like, okay, there's plenty of places where you have the right resources for you to have good training and experience as a player. Then you start looking more into research, as you get a little bit older, am I gonna like big school, small school? Am I gonna be more into a public school versus private, which usually public schools tend to be bigger, a student body, private, smaller. These are considerations with your athletic experience. You wanna go to a school that has a football program and like have that kind of lightly experience on campus, or you're not really too concerned about that, you just want to play, right? So these are things that you can just start logging in and saying, okay, I can start broadening my horizon of where I want to go, or I'm going to narrow things down because I want to be very specific to a certain type of school that you want to go to. Location is also a key factor. I mean, all of you guys are from Northern California, and a lot of you naturally want to gravitate towards, I want to be close to the beach down in Southern California. I think we have conversations, a lot of people want to do that. Okay, that's fine, but it just narrows down your choices that you have, right? So just being open-minded to, obviously, the local schools that we have here in the Bay Area, and also being open-minded to possibly go to the Midwest, go to the East Coast. But those take a little bit more work for you to do outreach at those places throughout the country. Resources, when it comes down to resources, and this is, to me, it is a big factor. The school is becoming more expensive. Let's say a public school like a UC Davis, what's like the average tuition,
Like cost of attendance,
Yeah.
like 32,000.
32,000, and then USF could be 80,000, right? So you see, like, the difference of just the price tag. So I think there's a lot of benefits. If you're a California player, stay in California and play either at a UC or state school, and even the cost of attendance at a state school is going to be cheaper than that of going to East Bay, right? Just purely financial. Now, if you are like a good player and you have the ability to get scholarship money, then it'll definitely offset those costs. If you go to a private school and it is 80,000, you can have maybe like a 4.0, and maybe they'll give USF or St. Mary's will give you $30,000, $40,000 in academic aid, and now you're able to not only are you allowed to combine your academic aid, you can combine your soccer scholarship money with that. So, is it going to cost $80,000? Probably not. If you're doing well in school, then that's going to offset it. And then if you're a good player and you get scholarship money, then that's going to help too. So it's just very situational, and I'm not going to get into its depth in terms of scholarship money at each program. Maybe if you guys want to have a Q&A after, you can ask those questions. But it just varies from school to school on the price tag, right, in terms of going to school. Obviously, for me, academics are really important. The better that you do in school, then you just have more opportunities. You have more doors are open, where, you know, if you want to go to an Ivy League school, you're gonna have very specific types of grades, and I think now even like the ACT and SATs are coming back in terms of them looking at that, and they might be able to get in more depth in terms of that, because in the past, during COVID, they kind of let off a little bit on test scoring, and I think that is slowly changing. But I'll send you guys links, and you can start looking at just the general requirements of getting into a UC school or a CSU, and then also the NCAA eligibility center. There's like basic requirements that you need over time to be eligible to play college soccer in general, and that baseline is pretty low. But you know, not everyone is at. You know, we're all at different stages in terms of schooling. Some of us might have really high GPAs. Others might be lower, but that's okay. There's still a way for you to navigate that and still have, you know, not the best grades, and still be able to play at a good level at almost a lot of these schools. And then there's other options too. If maybe you're not doing well academically, that's an opportunity for you maybe to go to a junior college and kind of just hit that reset button and go that path, and then potentially play that 4 year after you go 2 years in the junior college route. So academics are important, and again, for just having conversations with players over the years, you know, in most cases, players are really focused on the academic side, because what if soccer doesn't work out, you get hurt, you tear an ACL, or you have a back injury, and so you gotta also look at that factor of, okay, if soccer doesn't work out while I'm there, you know, am I still gonna be happy at the school that I'm at? So just things to think about. Before we stop, any, you know, going really fast, any topics that I've covered that anyone wants to elaborate, whether it's from the academic side, choosing a school, any thoughts in general, coaches? Good. Great. Okay, so making a list. Raise your hand who has like a college list at the moment. Okay, you got a couple. Okay, so this is, to me, this is why I would rather just like spend more time talking about these things. And what I'll do is I'll send you guys like samples. And this biggest thing is this stuff is very time consuming. So we've got some freshmen, some sophomores, and you're definitely on the younger side in terms of just in this process. But thinking about these things and starting these things, the sooner you can do that, the better. And it's important because then you can filter out later. So doing this can take you a lot of hours of going in there manually, going to UC Davis's website, grabbing the head coach's email, their phone number if it's there, then going to SF State's, their website, and grabbing and just doing that bit by bit by bit takes a lot of time. So what tends to happen is it's overwhelming. So what do you think people do? People don't do this. right? They don't do this work. But then you show up to a showcase or you play a game, you might go to an ID camp, then maybe you don't send out as many emails because you weren't prepared, you didn't have this. And then in your mind, you're like, oh, I'm just gonna show up to my games throughout the year, and I'm just gonna play. I'm gonna play good soccer, and I'm just gonna go out there and perform, and they're gonna watch you play, and then I'm gonna get recruited. Right? That's very difficult to do. There's just so many players out there. So many players are playing at a good level. So many players that are very good individually. And so how are you going to separate yourself from that pack? Like what can you do to do that? And you can do stuff on the field, which is great, but there's so many areas that you have in your control that you can get pretty good at, to where most people may not be doing that type of work. And then all of a sudden, you are sending out emails, you're being interactive, you're sending out the videos, and you may not be getting responses right away, but over time, you know, the coaches may take notice and say, okay, I'm gonna go watch this player play, watch them play once, I'm gonna go watch them again. Oh, they came to the ID camp, okay, now I'm starting to see a face. And that might sway someone to make a decision later down the line. So for me, getting anything out of these conversations today is just how can we prepare ourselves off the field to make sure we're putting in the time, right? We put in the time on the field, can we put the time into doing these things that are kind of like tedious and hard, right? And I feel like, you know, we have these conversations with, you know, maybe the coaches might disagree with me here, but it'll be, oh, the players should be doing all the work. Like I actually disagree. I feel like if parents want to help with this process, get them going, then like go for it. Now, should the parents be emailing the coaches? Probably not. But like this stuff, you guys can work together to do this, because I know it's hard, and it's just reminding your son or daughter, hey, do you have that list? Do you have a list of 20, 30, 40 schools? They probably don't. So it's like, you know, get on them a little bit to just make sure we're starting this process. The shifting over to now, highlight video, raise your hand. Has anyone made a highlight video? Okay, just a couple of you, right? So that's, how many videos have you made? One video. Okay, what are the chances of that video being like decent quality? Not likely, which is fine, it's okay. It's like anything else, you gotta practice, right? So 3 to 5 minutes doesn't seem long, but I scout games, I still scout games, and on scout games when I was in college, it's so time consuming. And that's like, even with me having all the technology and being able to cut the video hours and hours and hours, it's really hard. And most of you don't even have the technology that we kind of like use in our platform. So it just takes practice. So it was like, okay, what can I do to, whether it's iMovie, there's software now it can be like $20 a month that you can use. And you guys have access to the Vail cameras, all the stuff that gets downloaded, and just start practicing, making clips. And then eventually, yes, you want to get a little bit better. Like what are some of the things that you can put in a video that's going to make you stand out? Or if you're a striker, what do you want to put on in the video for a striker? Goals. Right? If you're a striker, you score goals. Probably have like the first 30 seconds of you scoring goals. Okay, what's your next attribute? Is it speed? Is it 1v1 dribbling? That should be the next section. Like me personally, I like things to be organized. If I'm good at goal scoring, put the goals. If I'm good at 1v1 dribbling, that'll be like the next thing. If I'm a good, off crosses, headers, instead of it all being bounced around, I'd rather it have some structure in the video. Now, again, that's a lot easier said than done because it takes time. So now you've got making a list, making a video, which you have to make the video, then you gotta eventually put in your email and sending out to schools. So again, things off the field that take time, that take practice for you to get better at over time. And also just in terms of like resources too, we've got all these local coaches, and even them being here in the Bay Area, they're gonna be very limited to the amount of times they can watch you play in a given year. So you still just giving them a highlight video and then them coming over to watch you play is a good way for them to see, okay, he or she's got good quality for me to go watch them play. So now you have the East Coast schools that have even less of an opportunity to watch you play in a given year. So it is important that, to me, the better you can get at making videos, it's just better you're marketing yourself and just attracting the coach to come watch you play in a given year. Next phase is just the emails. And once you have a list, you have a video, now you start inputting information, and this here tends to be a little bit easier in terms of like who you are, what position, what are your strengths as a player, the style that maybe your team plays or you play, having a video, then obviously putting in the game schedule, putting in any kind of references, whether it's your coaches, whether it's me if we've met, and just attaching anything that you can in a given email, and then just sending it out to the coach and doing the best you can to not make it look like it's a copy paste and you're just sending it to a bunch of different schools, right? So that's goes back to how much more time and effort are you willing to maybe make an adjustment and saying, Coach Mike, congrats on your win against Cal State LA. Good luck in next week's match. Looking forward to coming and watching your team play in the fall and spring, right? So especially if you've got like a top 5 list, taking that extra step can make a difference. In most cases, they can tell the difference between you just copy paste and not being as personal. But if you are sending out 30, 40 emails, I know it can get tricky and get hard. But if you can, try to see if you can just make those adjustments when you're sending out emails to the coaches throughout the year. And then in terms of like the amounts of emails that you're sending out to coaches, to me, it's periodic. So like you are going to a showcase, doing it a couple weeks before. If you're on a tournament, if you end up going to an ID camp, obviously you want to send an email before sometimes, or it happens a lot where players don't even send out an email right before the ID camp. Just again, it goes back like, I'm just going to show up and I'm going to play, and what if there's 100 kids there? They're not going to know that you're there. So just making sure you're just taking that extra step through that communication. And then when you get a bit older, you'll have the ability to interact with the coach if they reach back out to you. So if you are a freshman, sophomore right now, I'm sure that if you are at that age and you send emails, you get generic stuff back. And that's just because there's a rule. Like they're not allowed to talk to you until you get to a certain age. So just keep that in mind as you're going through this. Talking about marketing yourself, to me, it's just what can you do to stand out, just making sure you're just super prepped on making a good resume, database, just having all these things just organized as much as you can when we're going through this. So, I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand, but the chances of all of you having all these things are probably pretty slim, which it's okay, but let's see if we can just start looking into this and getting onto it. It's all about time management with your school, the training, games, travel. I know it's all really hard, but it goes back to what are your end goals? Like, what do you guys want to do? You guys want to play at the college level? If you do, understand that it's a difficult task. It's doable, but the higher level that you're aspiring to, right, it just gets that much harder. So you just have to do whatever you can to, train yourself to just practice on the things that are in your control, right? And then from there, in most cases, things could potentially pan out for you, right? But it's just putting in all this time off the field to give yourself the best chance. And then when it comes down to all of this, it just comes down to performance as well, right? So it's like, okay, maybe you are really good at everything we just talked about, but then when it does come for you to show up to a game and the coach is there for 90 minutes, coach is there for 20 minutes, like we don't know how long you're going to be there. Are you doing your best? Are you at peak performance in playing that match? Because at the end of the day, that's the coaches are going to look for certain positions, they're going to look for certain character traits that you might have as a player for what fits their program. They're going to be looking at your mannerisms. When you're on the field, they're going to look at your mannerisms. If for whatever reason you're on the bench, you're not playing, like are you upset about it? Are you like, what's your attitude towards that? And I think that all those things go a long way for you as a player. So it's whether it's one showcase or whether it's multiple games, always looking to perform your best. And also just when it comes to showing up to maybe an ID camp, are you fit, are you doing well, then can you perform? I mean, and most of you, that's what you guys all focus on, is the performance aspect of it, which is great. We want you to do that, but I feel like all the other things that we've kind of touched on leads for you to have a better opportunity to perform better on the field. And so when it comes to performance, right now I like to talk about this stuff, you know, the team training environment, training on your own. As you get older, this stuff, like, if you look at their rosters and then you interview their players that are on their rosters, doesn't matter what level, me as a coach, me as a player, you know, what are you doing to stay ahead? You know, are you your team training environment? Are you taking it serious? Are you messing around? It's hard to always stay at a high level because you got your friends on your team. You've probably been playing together for a lot of years, and we get comfortable, and it's just like part of it's our nature. But like, how can you stick that discipline of just taking training serious? You know, what are you doing on your own time? Even though I know you guys are all super busy. If you look, one common factor, a lot of players train on their own, right? Just going out, and the days that they're not training with their team, they're doing stuff against the wall. They're running. They're doing speed training. They're just doing anything they can to get an edge. And then, you know, I didn't touch about much on this, but then it comes to like recovery and sleep and you being able to manage that load, because it is hard. It's not easy. But there's definitely, to me, one common factor with guys and girls that do make it to the next level. Right? Physically, they're putting in a lot of work, a lot of effort, years and years of this to give themselves that opportunity to play at the college level. So just in general, the timeline, to me, it's never too early to start. So for the younger ones, it's really just the main thing is doing the research, understanding, you know, what's out there, and then it's just it's a progression, right? It's like, okay, you're a sophomore, but you know, next year it comes very, very fast. You know, this whole high school experience and you wanting to play at that level seems like you have time, but at the same time, there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and it goes by pretty quickly. So if you're a sophomore, a junior, like even the freshman right now, you don't have to, even on the girls' side, you don't have to worry like too much about, you know, getting all this anxiety about, oh, what am I going to do? Just do your research first. Identify, you know, I think practice making videos, practice just becoming a better player, and then with time you'll start thinking about, okay, what do I need to do? When do I need to email coaches? You know, when do I need to use my references? You know, when do I need to attend, you know, ID camps? Doesn't make sense. Me personally, it's all situational. I will just ask your coach. Say, do you think this makes sense for me to go to an ID camp or not? Whether it's an institutional one, when you're just showing up to the actual school, whether it's one of these big ones, I'm like indifferent, because you can go to one camp, there's like 20 kids, 30 kids. You might be able to show off a little better, but then if there's a camp with like 150 kids, what do you think the chances of you showing well on 150 kids? It's probably going to be tough unless you're like that confident in yourself, right? So I think it's just situational. Just ask whether it's your coach, ask a director. You can ask me, hey, how does this, you know, at my age, does it make sense to do this? So don't be afraid to take that step and communicate with us and see if it makes sense for you. It's not going to make sense for everyone to do that, so just double check and make sure that that's something that, if you're interested in doing, to do. And then your senior year, it's, you know, you just continue to reach out to schools, you continue to perform, and now you start asking yourself, okay, well, when do players start committing? On the girls' side, it's always a little bit earlier. They start committing their junior year. That happens a lot. On the boys' side, it's a mix, and it just depends where you're at. Call it the blue chip high-end schools, or they're recruiting pretty early. But as you get older, then you know the other schools are still looking for players. The timeline is, again, the gap a little bit short on the girls' side compared to the boys in most cases. But there's a lot of dynamics that are going, and I feel like, yeah, everyone has their own path, and we just don't know where you're quite at. And those are conversations that you can potentially have with your coach. Hey, what do you think I'm at this stage? Where do you see myself in a year from now, 2 years from now? And looking at all your options, I think, we'll talk a little bit about this, especially on the boys' side. It's becoming more common, is the gap year. So we're having conversations with the U19s now about that. If you're 2008, 2009, you're a bit younger, you're like, well, what's a gap year? What is that? Well, it's something to just be aware of, because the dynamics are changing in the recruiting landscape. So now, at least on the boys' side, it is common now for players to just stay in their club for another year, maybe take like part-time classes. Players are now going to Europe, and again, this is all situational. Like, does it make sense to go to this residence program where I'm training with the European coaches, and you still get an opportunity to get recruited by college coaches? That's an option. And then also just the junior college route. We're continuing to look at this route where the levels really, especially in California, it's really high because there's just a lot of players. There's a lot of good players out there. So these are all viable options. And one of the things that has really shifted over the years, and I don't know how much they can touch into this stuff, and maybe they can a little bit later, is the portal, right? Does anyone know what the NCAA portal is? Raise your hand, a couple. So the NCAA portal is basically just the ability of players that are playing at one college. They might be frustrated with the coach, or maybe they just did really well, and maybe they started off at a smaller school, and now all of a sudden they can say, oh, well, my stock just rose. I'm going to enter this portal, and now a bigger school might come in and take that player because they scored 15 goals or whatever. So what's happening is you have players with a, call it a proven track record, already in the system, kind of like the pro game, right? There's a transfer window. Oh, this player, we've been tracking this player, he's been doing well or she's been doing well. We're going to go in there, and we're going to take a player. Now, is that happening everywhere? No, but it is becoming more common where universities are going into the transfer portal and they're just picking up more players in the portal. So what does that mean? It could mean that maybe 6, 7, 8 years ago, a school was looking to recruit 6 incoming freshmen. Now, a school might only be recruiting 3 freshmen. Because now they're taking 3 players from where? From the portal. Because they can make an immediate impact. So now, like, especially on the boys' side, the average age, I think it's like 21 years old. Like, there's like 21-year-old freshmen. It's crazy. Like, it's changing. Now, I don't want to like discourage anyone with like, oh, what's going to happen? Look, you still have to like stick to your plan. You got to work. The opportunities are still going to be there, but just keep in mind that this stuff is happening, and if it's not going the way that you hope that it's going, there are other options. And my belief is I don't think coaches really care how old you are. If you're a little bit older and you come a little bit later, at the end of the day, in most cases, they want to win, right? Some, they want to develop and win, but it is results driven when it comes down to it in most cases. So it's all kind of situational. So I kind of just want to have you all be aware of that. And then on the women's side, it's happening too, right? It's very common to where on the girls' side that after the season's over, someone might be unhappy and they're just switching, slotting these older players, one team to the other. So that's that. So went through it as quickly as I could. Again, a lot of information in a short amount of time. I'll have this info. I'll send it to you guys. We'll have some other links that you can look at for your notes. But now I would like to just kind of open it up to the parents. The Q&A, as much as we can to the coaches, and if it's something that they can't really answer, I'll step in and do the best that I can to answer any questions you guys might have. So I'll open it up to parents, players.
Just curious for men's coaches, I guess, to your point about recruiting less freshmen, about how many freshmen would you recruit for your teams? This is on the men's side, so it might be different from the women's side.
I would say it's situational. It varies in different years as to how many players we have graduating, as to what type of player we want, whether it's a kid from the transfer portal, an international kid, a domestic kid. It just varies situational. There's years where we have 6 freshmen. There's other years where we have 3 freshmen, so it's just very situational per year.
Yeah, I mean, the only way to really look at that is looking at rosters now and just seeing, oh, this school just brought in three, like internet guys from within the transfer portal and 3 freshmen, right? So you can start looking at the behavior of like the rosters and going in there and seeing what's happening. So then you can get an idea of like, oh, okay, this particular university is focusing more on transfers. This university is still sticking to bringing in freshmen, because there are programs that would rather bring young players in, aren't too worried about getting results right away, just developing those players, to their junior, senior. And there's also other restrictions too, like on the academic side, you're probably not going to see as many transfers on high academic schools, because it's just hard to transfer units from school to school. So like, I would assume like Ivy League schools probably aren't switching players around, like, because it's just too difficult to switch players from the academic standpoint. So, any other questions? Yes.
2 questions. First is, when is it appropriate, like what age should they start reaching out to folks like you, like the coaches? Is it freshman year, sophomore year, junior year? And then secondly is, do you really identify kids that just reach out to you that you've never heard of, that you never identified through a camp or a game or anything like that? You just saw a video on a YouTube video or like some video that some kid sent you?
Yeah. Yes. And it's, first off, to your first question, it's never too early to start. Recently, I was in Las Vegas at the showcase, and an eighth grade girl came up to me with a handwritten note, and it's sitting on my desk right now currently, because we don't see that anymore. That used to be, I don't think that. Thank you, T. Anyway, and so those kinds of things do happen. Now, to the second question, yeah, I mean, like myself personally and other friends that I know, we go to games all the time and see people we've never seen before. And the thing that...
Was that because someone sent you a video, or you just happened to be there?
Just happened to be there. The video piece sometimes catches your eye, and then you go watch the team. I've watched video, and like the person that sent me the video, I'm like, who's number 6 on the other team, and I'll go to that. No, I mean, so it's not, so you guys have, the greatest misnomer is, y'all think it's this perfect science. The recruiting process is so subjective. It depends upon what you're looking for. Did somebody get injured last week while you were in the last day of training before you left for a camp? I had a kid years ago, Joe Owen, Anna Thorburn. We were at Nomads in April. Like, recruiting never ends. Left back at Santa Clara, broke her leg, and he got picked up and played for 4 years at Santa Clara because she was a left-footed left back. So it's very, very random, and it's very subjective. It's all about what happens and where you are, what phase you are in. There's not a coach up here that if they see a really good player, we're always all done recruiting until we see that next best kid. Like, that does happen all the time.
I would say too, for us, we'll look at videos and we'll start recruiting players from a video. So we'll try to we'll do our best to go through every video. We mostly do it. And if we see there's a player we just started recruiting from a video, we've never seen him play live, but because the video was really quality, then we start digging into that player and we recruit him.
Do you agree with him that it needs to be organized in a certain way, like 4 or 5 different leagues?
Yeah, 100%. Like, you can tell if, like Javi's talking about, when there's a quality video that you put time into, you practice, you've rehearsed it, you've gotten feedback, get feedback from him, get feedback from people that know it, then it looks better, it's more professional, it gives you a good impression. It's the best impression we have, so 100%.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I'll piggyback off the video thing. There's only 3 or 4 staff members that can actually go and recruit. And if you count the number of players just in the Bay Area, right, not even counting Southern California, Central Valley, that we can't see everyone, right? We can't be everywhere. So that video really helps spark interest. Usually, like Mike said, I mean, we'll look at a player and then want to know more. It's not like we're gonna offer the guy from the video, but, that definitely helps. And as far as the video, being specific, like Javi said, for us is huge, because if we're looking for a winger that's really good at 1v1, can track back on defense and has that stamina, like that's what we're looking for, and that's what we see in the video, that's gonna go on our list and then we'll look at them. But everyone's usually looking for specifics, right? We want that best player, but once you have the best players, you're looking to fill spots, left back, right wing, and then those videos help.
I would actually say one more thing about the video is you might hear a no from the video, and that's not a bad thing, because it helps you cross off a school and move forward somewhere else, right? So even if it's not the positive, it's still gonna help you with that next step too.
Great, thanks.
How often do you guys respond to the emails? Like a lot of times you send it out and have no idea whether the coach has an interest or not. Like, do you guys say yes, no, or you want to see more, or is the player just kind of left to wonder? Because you must get a lot of emails.
Yeah, I'll answer that. I think it depends. Some programs have like a specific, like we will write back to every single player that writes us, but it depends on your grad year. So you can't respond, Division I level, you can't respond to any email or any sort of contact with a player before June 15th going into their junior year. So every freshman and sophomore in this room, no one's gonna write you back. So you don't know. But I will tell you that if you do get an email with a video or something that does spark your interest, you'll probably know, because college coaches can reach out to club coaches and that information and interest can trickle down. So I would say that if there is interest, you would probably find out in some capacity. So after June 15th going into your junior year, then, you know, it's hard to respond to 1,000 emails before a showcase. So to kind of Javi's point is there isn't, like, you're not gonna be annoying, you know, and continue sending emails, continue reaching out even if you don't get a response, because there's also a lot of like name familiarity where if you go to a showcase and you get, you know, your brochure of all these players and you're kind of taking a look at it and you're like, oh, that name looks so familiar. You can look in your email and be like, wow, that person's emailed me 15 times, that's why I know that name, right? And that's not a bad thing, right? Like I'm like, okay, well now I probably need to give this player feedback so that she either leaves me alone or she can move on, right, to find a program that's interesting. You know, and so I don't, there's like no limit, like don't feel like you're being annoying or being aggressive by sending in a lot of emails. Just continue sending your schedule. Hey, this is my update. Hey, I also, you know, run track and these are, you know, my track times, and just like continue sending information. Don't be discouraged if you don't get an email back. I think that that's just kind of part of the process, yeah.
In the back.
What is your recommendation on utilizing online resources like NCSA versus reaching out through the conventional methods?
From my experience, and again, I'm at the junior college level, so it's a 2-year level. And prior to that, I was a head coach in the CSU system for 15 years. I would say be direct as an individual, and more often than not, for my whole career as a head coach, I don't pay too much attention to some of those companies. And but I do like recruiting a lot, and I do like reading things from the student athletes themselves, or seeing clips of videos of them if we haven't seen them. And I like knowing what clubs are at so that we can contact those club coaches and get some more information about them. I don't think those companies are bad, but I think from my experience, you can do the job on your own. And I prefer players that go that route too, or families that go that route.
Yeah, and you talk about, you know, name recognition of club. I think it's really important for, I'm gonna put my club hat on, I do coach at Mustang. This club has its own recognition, right? And the people that are in the room and or not, right, but still working behind the scenes, hobby, they can be, you know, resources for you, so that when you do send an email, put your club team, right? I think it's important to put it in the subject line, because that recognition, when we have 3,000 emails, it's like, oh, okay, I know this guy at Mustang, this gal at Mustang, I can give him a call. So talking about recognition, right, in that piece.
Yep.
I have a question. This is both about evaluation, also like kind of putting together a highlight video. Like, things that I've heard, like, it's easy to kind of, well, it's easier to kind of put together a highlight video of someone who has like crazy 1v1 skills or crazy pace, or like is a striker and just scores a lot of goals. But any kind of insights as to how you evaluate, say if your kid is like a 6 or an 8, and they read, the game really well, they play really good passes, they make really good switches, things like that, but they don't lend themselves to highlights the same way like a striker that scores 20 goals a season does. Like, how do you put together good highlight videos for people like that? And how do you evaluate those kind of players? Because they, when you're watching, they don't stand out necessarily in the same way that, a super pacey 1v1 wing would.
I mean, I would say they still do stand out for those qualities. We all have an eye for all the positions on the field, and so when we go watch the video of the 6, we are looking for that great pass that sets up the goal 2 passes later, right? So we're looking for, can they switch the point? Can they play back to goal? And do they win aerial duels, right? So we're looking for all those pieces, even if it's not the goal. It's flashy for that position.
I think to the point of sending out multiple emails, in those types of moments where you're playing a very specific position that doesn't necessarily have the glory, right?
Right.
It's passages of play, right? Like, longer passages of play where you're showing winning the ball, losing the ball, regaining the ball, finding that quality pass, those types of things. And then the next highlight video is, hey, you thought the last one was good, check out this one, blah, 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 blah. And, like those kinds of references, and for those pieces, you might want to add some sort of, literally some music that kind of goes along with it and different stuff. No, all of those things matter. Like, I'm not kidding. We watch video all day long. Like, there's literally like, that kid's got great taste in music. That'll get you look back. But to your point, I think it's about mastery play.
I would just to kind of touch on that point in terms of like, let's say that particular type of player profile. I kind of know where you're getting at. At the local level, go watch games. So go watch all levels, see how they're playing, and then like specifically that profile. If there's a team that the ball is barely in the middle of the field, it's probably a good chance that you don't fit that type of style of soccer. So now maybe you might run into a team that you didn't even know. They're like, oh, okay, they're utilizing the midfield a little bit more. They've got a couple players that similar profile. Then you can become a little bit more aggressive to those specific schools that might fit that profile of that player, if that makes sense. Like whether it's like, a skillful, high IQ player, or like a fast, physical, strong. And most teams have a mixture of both, but there'll be some programs that definitely stick to one type, a common type of player compared to the other. So I think that just goes back to the players watching games, whether it's online or just, I know you guys are super busy, but going in even despite the fall, just go watch games if you can. I mean, there's plenty of opportunities to go watch St. Mary's play. Davis play locally, they come down to the Bay all the time. San Jose, Stanford, Berkeley, East Bay. There's just, as I've said, there's so many opportunities for you guys to actually watch not only the local team, but the teams you're playing against. Yes.
For the colleges that are more difficult to get in, do the players need to add the GPA, or is it important to add it, or is it important just the video? How does it work?
I think it depends on the institution, because every school has different academic requirements to be admitted. So there are a lot of schools that if you don't have a minimum GPA, they can't help you get in. So that automatically kind of discounts you. But I mean, every program up here, and usually like we have special like applications that we can, help.